welcome again to another episode of Stringer Than Fiction. I am Jonathan. Should be my third review video and my fifth video overall, so I've been having fun with this. But today I am reviewing Port of Shadows by Glen Cook. So, this one's tough for me. Glen Cook is perhaps one of my favorite authors. The Black Company series is also one of my favorite series. I've read some others by him, mostly though Black Company. It is a 11 book series total so far, with another one on the way this fall, with some short stories added in. So the main story is books 1 through 9, and then there's like a 3.5 book. It's kind of a side story, so 10 books. Cook started writing The Black Company. I think the first one released in like 84, 85, somewhere in the early to mid 80s. And I think the last book of the main line, the first 10 books, he wrote in 2000, or it was published in 2000, Soldiers Live. And then in 28, so I read for the first time when I was in college back in the early mid 2000s. It's around when I read The Black Company. And since I'd done that reading, Port of Shadows was written and released by Mr. Cook in 2018. So, not too long ago, I guess last year sometime, when I used to commute with my brother, I wanted him to listen to The Black Company. So, on our long work commutes, I enjoy listening to audiobooks. So, we started with the series, and then he ended up moving, and some things changed for him. So, I just continued listening to it. I hadn't, read the series in about 20 years. Some stuff I remembered, some stuff I didn't. I just remembered I liked it. Reading / listening to it again, I was like, man, I like it even more. So it kind of even more cemented my enjoyment of the series, and definitely in that top 10 category for me somewhere as a series. However, I had not read Port of Shadows since it released between those two. So I did get an audiobook. I don't have a physical book yet to show you. So I just finished a reread through the main 10-line books. And then I guess it's about time to read Port of Shadows. So Port of Shadows happens between book 1 and book 2 in the series. I don't recommend reading it chronologically. If you end up reading it, I would read the main series first and then read it as like that interquel, or it's kind of a prequel, but it's not a prequel since it's not before the first book. So whatever you want to call it. But it does have some of the problems a prequel has, where you're very limited on what you can do because the story that happens afterwards has already been written. So I know certain characters aren't going to die. I know certain characters, if they do something super, super amazing that continue in the later books, how do you just introduce that in between book 1 and 2? Now, Cook does some things to do some of that and make it, I don't want to spoil things very much, but it does fight those struggles. And how do you make something impactful and lasting that gets inserted in between a story where you already know what happens before and what happens after? Definitely tough. So this book has kind of two timelines, or not kind of, it does have two timelines. One is in modern times, which is the current time between book 1 and 2, where the setting takes place in that chronology. And then it has some, I wouldn't call them flashback scenes, or there's from a point of view, I guess it's 400 or 500 years in the past, during the domination time, focusing on Lady as a teenager, that character. So it bounces between those, and you don't really understand, at least for the good first part of the book or most of the book, why they're bouncing between the two. But as you get toward the end, Cook does wrap it together and puts a bow on it and explains things. So some things are better fleshed out to maybe understand things that happen later on. But for the most part, it's kind of just a snippet or an insert there that doesn't have any or real lasting effects, besides maybe getting to appreciate some of the motivations behind some of the characters a little more. So the way it goes, it's following the Black Company as kind of a lull between the ends of book one and what happens in book two, like I mentioned. And it's not really talked about. There's like this kind of lost period in between there, and so this book does fill that in. They're stationed out of town. I don't remember the name. Just kind of playing Tonk, which is the card game they play a lot in the Black Company. Hanging out, kind of setting up a more permanent residence, getting after and stopping some of the rebel work that's going against the lady. They're employed by the lady here, and they meet this girl. And then supposed to capture named T-Days Elba, which is a very strange name. And she's this beautiful girl, and then they mention how much she looks like the lady, and then she has magical powers. And then they find more like basically sisters of her, or almost like twins, but different ages. And there's a whole bunch of them. They call them T-Days Elba's clones. And then it talks about she goes and gets captured. They send her to the tower, which was the lady, and she comes back as a Taken with a lot of magical power. Again, there are spoiler things if you ever read the book, so I'm not going to go too far into there. But it's told from the point of view of Croker, kind of like some lost entry into the annals. But they're not his. Someone else keeps them, so that's why it explains why it wasn't in the annals before. In later books, for him to go back and read, and oh yeah, this is what happened. They are found much later in a storage or something like that. That's the way Cook writes it in here to make it make sense in the story without there being major plot holes. And again, like I said, he does a good job about. It seems like there's going to be plot holes, but then there's there's not. He does explain or tie that up fairly well, at least in the story of the book. But there's problems with this book. As much as I like the Black Company, and maybe I'll have to do an overall series review or talk and maybe gush about that a little bit. This one misses the mark. It is, I'd say most of the Black Company books are 4 to 5 star books for me. This one, it's probably pushing 3 at tops, and mostly just because it's the world I love. Some of my like of it maybe I'm giving it a pass on some things, but then I'm also like, well, maybe since I like the series so much and this one's not a letdown, am I being overly harsh on it? And I bet it's a bit of both. So maybe they offset each other some in certain aspects. I can't help but feel, let me see, Cook sounds kind of like a creepy old man writer in this. And the way that and again, Black Company characters are not good people for the most part. They do nasty things. He seems to revel in it a little more in this one as opposed to ones previously or the books, because these characters do these things, but it just happens a lot. And again, I can handle this stuff in my books no problem. People are creepy, people are weird, they do nasty things, and there's people that do good things, and the cynic of me kind of resonates with that a little bit, that people are going to be people, and they're in war, and they're a mercenary group. Nasty things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen. And I'm fine with that, but it just seemed to be too much of the focus at times. Now, later in the story, some of that does kind of come together and make sense why it is, but, one of the ridiculous plot points is they start capturing a bunch of these clone girls, or whatever you want to call them, or sisters, or lookalikes, or whatever, of that T-Days Elba character. And they start everyone's getting in a bad mood and feeling weird, and apparently all these young girls, they're between ages like 5 and 14, or 5 and 16 maybe, they are the ones that actually start having their periods. This is explained, where they start syncing their periods up, and since they're all magically inclined with a lot of power, but a lot of them don't even realize it because they were never trained, they start, whenever their moods change and they freak out and they start fighting, it's like making everyone else in the area kind of get this residual PMS or something. It's the best way to explain it. And it's like, that's weird. It's a weird concept. And in some ways it's kind of funny, I suppose, but some of it just didn't work, and it's just too ridiculous. So there's also a lot of newer characters introduced, and how do you write all these new characters without them all dying at the end? Which not all did, or a lot of them actually I don't think did. But then not have them show up later or be mentioned later, right? So that's kind of a problem. Again, some of that is answered. But the stuff I think was cool, the mod, surprisingly enough, seeing all some of my old favorite Black Company characters, in writing and I hadn't, read about in a long time, was awesome. Like I like Silent, the wizard, and the captain. You get to see much more of him in this one. So that part's cool, but I actually enjoyed the historical side story or the timeline more, I think, than the present day one. Present day one just kind of got annoying, and again, with all the stuff with those girl clones, it was just kind of strange. But some of the back history on the lady and during the domination hadn't, none of that had been written about before, or only hinted at or kind of talked about. So seeing some of that living out and the interactions of there, and that story was quite cool, and I was enjoying that part much better. So if you tone down some of the creepiness, maybe if it was edited a little better, a little more, take out some of that, focus it a little more in some areas, I think it would have been, maybe it could have had potential to be like a 4-star book. Right now it's probably a 2.5 to 3. Some good. It's still the Black Company. It's still the characters. It's not as sharp of a story, I don't think. It's then the limitations of it being a prequel-esque, those kind of, I always find prequels have, it's hard for a prequel to be as good, in my opinion, just because of the limitations of the story and how much what stakes are there, right? You know what's going to happen later. So nothing can be that big of a surprise. So those things make it a little kind of has a lower ceiling of how good could it possibly be. But he is writing maybe a book 10 or 11 or whatever you want to call it in the storyline into this year. So I've already pre-ordered that. Gonna read it no matter what. Just got to give it a try. I want to support Cook, Write More, Black Company. The mainline series that he wrote between 1984 and 2000 are just fantastic. But reader beware. This is a very skippable book. So don't feel like, I definitely wouldn't read it after book 1. But if you wrap up the series and you like it so much, if you're an big fan, you got to experience it all and check it all out. Definitely, by any means, read it. But if you're looking for as high of quality as the rest of the series, this one is definitely a letdown there. So what's up next? I have another book haul box or so I've been kind of keeping around, maybe box and a half I could show off. I'm also listening to the audiobook of Red Rising, surprisingly enough. A more modern book. I guess Port of Shadows is also modern, but I went to my work trip in Vegas last week, and I had a lot of time to listen to the audiobook. And the reason why I prioritized this book is I guess I got it as a free audiobook on Audible or whatever a year or two ago. And it's telling me my free trial of it or whatever is running out in next month. So I was like, well, better listen to it now. And I got a trip coming up. So I'll talk more about that. I overall I like it, but I'll fill in more on that video, which these next 2 videos will probably come out in the next week or so. Maybe slow down a little bit with the 4th of July holiday coming up, but again, I appreciate everyone's viewership. I think all my 4 videos now have 100 views or more, which is great to me. So keep them coming in. I definitely would love more comments, even if it's just or hey, great video, I love that. But if you want to discuss, I wouldn't mind having some more in-depth conversations or questions and answers about any of these reviews, and with that engagement, that'd be fun. But thank you for watching this video, for whoever sits here for the whole thing, and get you guys with another video here in a few days.